Hello,
Hi,
everybody. Hi,
Shalom Tzili.
Dan Tadmor, the CEO of ANU, that used to be Bet Futsot, the
Right.
larger Jewish museum
In the world.
Based in
Right.
Tel Aviv.
Wonderful, new, fantastic,
Great museum.
architectural and functional and beautiful
And
building.
the main thing, what's inside.
You're right. But it's
the
also
content.
important.
The
Oh,
content
okay, but you
is
have an
great.
integration between the outside and the inside.
Dan,
don't let me interrupt you. You can go on.
That's okay. We will. We know you.
I will interrupt.
She has to stop me all the time.
Listen, new elections in Israel. I don't think there's anybody in the world who doesn't know what happened to our little country. And since we are part of also the Jewish community in the United States, and I see that the conservative and the reform communities are worried about the relations with the new government in Israel. How can we calm them down? How can we still keep wonderful relations with all the Jews that are very, very dear to us and very important to us?
How?
Well, the question of the relationship, so the two largest Jewish communities in the world by far are Israel and North America. Right? So there are about 15 million Jews in the world, and about 12, depending on how you count, but 12 and a half, 13 million are Israel and North America, almost in equal sizes. Okay. And so the relationship between those two communities is hugely important. And through the decades, it has gone through several phases. People don't remember, or people don't know, that at the beginning of Zionism, it wasn't clear whether American Jewry was on board with Zionism, and not all of it was. Okay, and even after the establishment of the State of Israel, some Americans were not enthusiastic Zionists. And I'm not only talking about ultra-Orthodox, but other Americans as well. And so we've gone through changes, and we've always been strong enough to persevere, and the relationship between these communities has always survived challenges. In recent years, there have been more and more challenges. I think it also has to do with the fact that these two communities are growing more and more distinct. So there used to be a time when at least some of us had relatives. If you were in Israel, you had relatives in America. If you're American, you had relatives in Israel. They've become two more separate and distinct communities, and that has its challenges as well. So I think it's an ongoing process, and I think what it requires from both sides. Let's forget the government for now. Let's talk about the people. Okay, let's talk about Jewish people in Israel and Jewish people in America. Because governments change, right? Both here and in America. The more that I've thought about it in recent years, and I've been here a full decade at the museum, so I've had a lot of time to think about Jewish identity and these relationships. In recent years, I've begun to think about it more in terms of love, of Ahavat Israel, which is a very old term, and maybe if we think long and hard enough, we could find some terminology that says the same thing. But I'm talking about the relationship, and in recent, I'd say in the recent 2 to 3 years, I've come to the conclusion that Ahavat Israel, the love, the emotional part, is the necessary condition, it's the prerequisite. It's not the result. I don't think you go through the mind and then convince the heart. If the heart isn't there, if there isn't a sense of family between Jews, then nothing we do will ever stick.
Love it.
That's what I feel now. What do you think?
Basically, what you're saying, and this is something that I feel, well, I'm not sure that that's what you say, but I'll be less careful. I feel that the museum should be the heart for the Jews that are not wanted in Israel. And the definition of who is a Jew and how much you need to be in the Jewish sense, in order to be part of the Am Israel, is lacking now, with the new definitions. And we are in Israel; it's a Jewish state, and we do have this museum, and there is a humongous community outside of Israel that is going to suffer. And I think that we need to open, because the new government declared that the conservative and reform Jews are not welcome to.
But he's talking about love. And,
I know.
And something that we have to do. You see, you and me would love Israel, even if it's now so difficult to love the state because of the new government. Let's put the government aside.
We're Israelis.
Yeah, but we have to walk like what he says. We have to see how we can share the love with the ultra-religious, with the religious. Anu should be.
It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, love is the most important thing, always. Love Israel because we're Jewish. Okay, very important, very good.
But Israel needs to love. Israelis need to love Jews all over the world.
Right, wherever they are.
We need to welcome everybody in the Jewish community.
Also ultra-religious.
That's why
it needs to begin with unconditional love.
Right.
First of all.
So okay? I love it what you say. It's amazing.
That's why I think that the museum should welcome everybody in spite of, and create not a substitute home, but a center, a core to all these communities that feel unwanted with the new government.
Tell me something, maybe it's ignorance. Sure. I'm sorry to ask it. Is Anu now has different, displays of all the, the Satmar and the Hasidim and the Gur?
They have everything.
Different, yes, you do?
Yeah. So a little bit about them. So let's zoom out.
I was in the museum. My memory is not like it was, but I have a point.
It's everything.
We should make sure that they come in, let's say, invite the Satmar people to look at the room and suggest what and if there is things they want to put in and enlarge it.
This is something else.
No, this is what I'm talking about.
What I'm talking about.
Oh, you. Okay.
What I'm talking about, it's not to welcome all the kind of Jews in Israel. In Israel, it's fine. I'm talking about the communities outside of Israel that are going to be unwanted in Israel.
But that will bring everybody together, I'm sure.
No,
you
mix politics and the other
I
stuff.
only use heart. If we can get to the heart of the Gur people, then we can get through their heart, so they will also embrace the reforms.
So let's break this down a little bit, okay? First of all, the museum, one of its principles is that it represents everyone.
Okay.
So every Jew, and most probably every person, but let's start with Jews. Every Jew is able to see themselves in the museum, right? So it's a descriptive museum. It describes the Jewish world currently and historically, okay? So there's room for everyone, and everyone is represented, okay? Now, if a visitor comes and says, listen, I don't feel that I'm represented, okay? That's something that we need to listen to and address. And we listen to visitors. It's a very humbling experience to open a museum, because we've had over 500,000 visitors since we opened last year, and we listen to them. We have dissected something like 60,000 questionnaires that we've distributed and collected, okay? And 7 people read every comment, and we listen, okay? Some of the things that we hear are technical. It's too cold. Malasot, it's a museum that has objects and it needs to be climate control. It's too noisy. Some people complain because it's a very busy museum. You've been to it, okay? And for some people, it's too much. Some people say it's too crowded. What are you going to do? People come. We just had Hanukkah. We had days of 2,000 visitors. We're not going to turn anybody away. But a lot of the comments have to do with content. And so when someone says, I feel I'm not represented, that's something that we need to address. Sometimes they're correct and sometimes they're not, okay? But sometimes we have people saying, no, my problem is I'm represented, that's fine, but why are they represented, okay? Why are you showing us other Jews that we don't condone? That I have a problem with. I mean, it makes me sad.
Agree with
There's nothing that I can do to address the issue. We're not going to hide or mask or put away any existing real group of Jews, okay?
Right.
And if someone comes in and is bothered by the very fact that next to them there is someone else, there's not a lot that I can do about it. And so, yes, all of the Orthodox denominations are represented, and all of the liberal denominations are represented, down to the smallest one, the Reconstructionist denomination.
But I'm talking about two different things, because I know everybody is presented. I think everybody should be presented. I think every Jew who comes to the museum should find himself. And that's obvious. It's for the Jewish people, and there are many kinds. And
by the way, regardless of gender, age, ethnicity, not
this
only denomination.
This is given. What I'm saying, what I'm worried is about the relations with the Jews outside of Israel who are not part of the system, the Jewish system here that is against them. And I would like to find a way to create a place for them, or a home or a center that has to do with Israel without aggravating the government and without getting hurt in the museum, and still keep them hugged in the somehow in the museum. And the question, if we need to do anything about it, if we need to create something, or at least have connections with them, with the communities in the United States, with, to talk to them about it.
What do you think that don't feel related? They feel related. You talk about the reform, right?
Reform and conservative.
Yeah, I talk about everything. And so what do you have in American Jewry that they cannot find themselves now in the museum? I'm asking, I don't know.
It's not that. The Israeli government now is very ultra-Orthodox. They're against the conservative.
We speak about now. Today they come to the museum, they can find themselves?
Of course.
Okay, now so this is one thing. Now we speak about the future, since we have a new government, right?
Yeah, but also in all fairness, the new government includes factions that reject reform and conservative Judaism, but that's not the position of the government. And I don't think it ever will be the position.
I understand. It's not the position of the government, but we have sections in the government that are rejecting the reform and the conservative. And the reform and conservative, we know how big they are, and we know how they don't like it because they want to be part of it, which is absolutely correct. So the question is, I feel that maybe there's a way to create at least spiritual or emotional base for them, so they won't feel rejected, and to do it through the museum, because the government won't be here forever.
But it's what? We have to be specific in what to do.
We cannot be specific because we have to figure it out, and we have to think how to do it to welcome them, and in spite of, and not make anybody angry, because the museum needs everything.
So the museum should present himself, I think, as a home for everybody, every Jew.
But
it will be it's almost like right now we can ignore. I mean, we shouldn't, it doesn't matter what, the Otzma Yehudit or the Kahana people think about it. They represent every Jew, right?
Let me address it this way.
You mix too many things.
So let me try and formulate this. So the museum in its first iteration as Bet HaTfutzot Diaspora Museum was open for over 40 years. It opened in 78 and it reopened in 21. Okay. And when we built this museum, we didn't do it for 1 year or 5 years, or a single government or regime, or even, it's a museum for a lifetime, right?
Right.
Hopefully we did a good enough job for the museum to be relevant for decades. Not that it won't undergo changes, but the mainstay, the core exhibition is for decades. And so it needs to be resistant to temporary changes. Right. Governments change there, whatever. What the museum needs to do is just maintain its identity.
Completely.
And storms will come and go, but what we can do, and by the way, what every Jew should do, is maintain their identity. And we know what our identity is, okay? We're a museum that tells the story of the Jewish people.
Yes.
Geographically, historically, and thematically, and includes all Jews. We get criticism from all sorts of positions. We get criticism from one wing that says, why do you show us reform? By the way, sometimes we get criticism from the other wing that says, why is about half the museum dedicated to synagogues and the Bible and the covenant and the Jewish life cycle and yearly cycle? This is hadassah. Hadassah, which you know is a Hebrew term for religious coercion. This is religious coercion. If I'm a secular Jew, if I'm an atheist, why, when I come to the Jewish Museum, do you shove down my throat synagogues and covenants and Bible? Well, all of this is Jewish identity, okay? Mm-hmm. And so as long as we remain firm,
yes,
things will come and go. And
but this is obvious. This is given.
This is not obvious because you and me are afraid, and I think also you, deep down, you like pray that they will not put a foot in the museum. They is the ultra-religious, the new ultra-religious, who are now in the government, and they were not such extremists.
Guys, I don't remember. I'm talking about something else because the museum is there. It's not changing. It keeps room for everybody. Everybody is welcomed. Whoever wants to come, right. It's his. I'm talking about coming out from this safe zone and the collective zone and do something extra to communicate with the with different communities of Jews in the United States that are very worried and very hurt from what they hear from here. So this is something that I think in a very delicate way we should weave, you know,
but he's doing it. The moment you say we are this and we are like a rock, we are not going left, we are not going right, no wind is going to shake us, except, you know, it's always. So I don't really know specifically what you wish. If they should be the voice, they should go out.
And we are. So Tzili, to a certain extent, we are the embassy of global Jewry in Israel.
I know.
Okay? And this is not something that's trivial, because one of the problems is that there's growing ignorance in Israel about the history and the present about global Jewry.
Right.
Again, all of us used to have relatives all over or our parents came from the diaspora. So we had firsthand or secondhand knowledge of the Jewish world outside of Israel. And the more Israelis that are second, third generation born in Israel, there's a growing ignorance, okay? Yes. And one of our roles is to represent global Jewry, by the way, not only North America, there are millions of Jews in other places in the world, to the Israeli public, just for them to acknowledge the very existence of the fact that there's still a slight majority of Jews outside of Israel, mm-hmm. right? Israel is still not a majority, it's still not 51%, okay? And not only are these people there, they have their distinct beliefs and lifestyles, etc., and they have a history. People in Israel are increasingly ignorant of the history of Jews outside of Israel, in Europe and in America. Yeah. And so I think we play an important role in addressing that ignorance. Awareness is a good first step, okay, towards understanding. And then what I think you are correct about is that we need to make people feel welcome here. It needs to be a home for Jews when they come here, and it increasingly is. I think that if you're an American Jew and you come to the museum, you feel at home.
Yeah, it's a safe place.
Yes.
It's really a safe place.
And in all of our activities, we always underscore the need for communication. We've established a center for dialogue. Mm-hmm. The Tisch Center for Jewish Dialogue is a physical space adjacent to the museum that specializes in talking faith, that is within the Jewish people, and also interfaith, right? But it's meant for dialogue because like you said, people need to express themselves and they need to feel that they're listened to.
I just think that with more sensitivity, that for every negative voice that is coming out of Israel, they need to hear another positive voice that is coming towards them.
They do for Anu.
They would, and it needs to be fed a little bit extra.
Okay,
and there's a lot of work to do on the other side, just, to calm them down and to welcome them. Israel is Israel. It will change. It's changing as we speak. But as we say, it's the Jewish home, and the museum is the Jewish home. But I think that in a very sensitive way, we need to give them more padding.
Tell me something. I don't know if I deviate, and I don't know if I make sense. But anti-Semitism, we know it's increasing and stuff, but a lot of it is with people who don't differentiate between Jewish and Israeli policy. You know what I mean? A lot of them, they're against the occupation, they're against Jews. The question, if Anu can somehow help in making differentiation between the two. It's kind of weird to say it even. But the policy of the government, let's say against, with occupation, should we separate it from the Judaism? Because anti-Semitism is going to grow the more now I can see around the world and the United Nations and everybody, is against Israel in a big way. And maybe the anti-Semitism is up in correlation.
But I don't think that...
So obviously we stay away from politics.
Right. The museum cannot take care of everything. And it's
right.
not...
And so we stay away from politics.
Who will do
but
it?
It's not the Jew, not this museum.
Who will? You see, I don't know
they
why.
They cannot take all the problems on their shoulders and solve it.
Come on, he can do it. He has the white shoulder, but we know that the Anu is for everybody, not just Jewish people.
So,
right? I don't know if Anu cannot, in a very slowly and delicate way, open up a channel for that, especially when he has those conversations.
No.
So I think Tzili is right in that every organization should know what it specializes in and what the scope of what it does is. So first of all, we stay away from politics, and also we can't do everything.
Anti-Semitism is politics?
However, that's the however.
Okay.
When I came here 10 years ago, if you'd have asked me about anti-Semitism, I would have probably said something like, yeah, it's still there, but it's a relic of the past, and let's not dwell on it.
That's not
right. That's not my position today. Okay.
Right.
Of course. So the decade, this last decade, has really proven to us that anti-Semitism all over the world is a constant and it's growing, and so we can't not address anti-Semitism. Okay. But the position of this organization is that what we're not going to do is fight the proponents of anti-Semitism. We don't see a way of influencing, or that is, we're not going to address. What we can address is our side. Okay, so our belief is that the stronger your identity is, the more you know who you are, the more connected you are to your identity, the more resilient you are in fighting off anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. Very often, Jews are faced with anti-Semitism with no tools to combat it because they're not even completely literate about their own identity. Okay, we've seen this in campuses, we've seen this in other places. So you see a demonstration, and claims are made at the demonstration in front of Jews, and we know because we're more literate. We know that these are false claims, easily refutable. But the poor Jewish student there doesn't have enough information about their own identity to simply say, Mr. Demonstrator, you're talking
how can you reach the students?
So
maybe you should start there with the students.
So what I'm saying is, I'm not going to fight the demonstrator blurting out anti-Semitic trope, okay? Not because it's not important, but because it's beyond our scope. What I can do is reach the Jewish person that is faced with that and arm them with the information and strength of identity to face that sort of onslaught with better tools. Okay,
so you have a
and that's
plan?
where we concentrate. Well, up till a few years ago, it wasn't within, as I said, it wasn't within what we wanted to do. Now, when we're looking at the next 5 years of this organization, so we're preparing a strategic plan for the next 5 years. We've built the museum. It's a good museum. It's successful. Fine. Now, how do we leverage that success? And how do we reach that excellence in other areas of activity? How do we establish educational programs, outreach, digital initiatives, traveling exhibitions, public programming, both on-site and online, that are on the same level of excellence as the museum with the same message? And once and this is what we're going to implement in the next 5 years. That's the next mission. We've done the museum. The next level is to reach, but we want to reach huge numbers of people. We're talking about touching in various ways between 1 and 1.5 million Jews annually. Okay? When I say touch, it's a museum visit, but it's also participating in educational programs, public programming, stuff like we do now, right? This is public programming. What we're doing now is public programming. It's tzuzamen, right? But we need to establish a robust platform of public programming. Digital initiatives, our databases need to be more engaging. And our target is 1 to 1.5 million touch points a year.
How much?
Okay. 1 to 1.5, between 1 million and 1.5 million touch points.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Every year. And we believe that if we do that, and if we establish ourselves as a leading distributor of Jewish identity content, that in that way we'll be serving Jewish identity, and we'll also be serving the fight against anti-Semitism on our side. Okay? I don't know about the other side. That's a huge challenge. We can't do, as Tzili said, we can't do everything.
But you call yourself Anu, and this is what we miss now among the Jewish Israeli society. The Anu, this is what we miss.
Yeah, I agree.
The museum is doing everything they can.
But me, I come and I want more. I'm not kidding. So I meet people. But I need your guidance. His guidance. I'm not kidding. I'm not saying. I see.
The museum is working non-stop in order to elevate things and open up for more things, and it grew amazingly well, and it will keep growing because they do a great job. And they cannot do everything, and they don't need to do everything. But
I will argue.
The sense of urgency.
Who will do it? Tzili, who is going to bring the Anu? Who is going to do it? Tell me.
Well, I'm not telling you anything now, because what Dan is doing, he's doing the Anu the way it should be with the museum. And I don't think we are here now to tell everybody what they need to do right now, because all we want to know is to talk to Dan about it.
I don't think.
Because I feel, Tzili, that can you describe this sense of urgency that you're feeling? Well, you're in Israel now, but when you're in America?
In America, yes, because I hear.
Can you describe it?
I can hear many things had changed, not only from here to there, also there. It's a time of many changes, but I think that the Jews in America, many Jews in America, not all of them, are very tuned to what's going on in Israel. So we always have all kind of like a variety of ideas about it. Maybe they interfere too much, maybe they do too much, but they do care very much. They do help Israel a lot. They do come to Israel all the time. And all of a sudden, they feel that it might be a big problem if those who don't agree with conservatism and reform, they won't have the same relations with Israel. And they're upset, and they don't know how to deal with this yet, and they might cut short help to Israel. So this is something that it's there. And, you know, they're very tuned to what's going on here. And every time they talk about the relations and what to do and how to do. And I feel that there's a little bit void that is created because of the atmosphere here that, listen, this didn't happen for ages. The fact that conservative and reform Jews are being pushed away
Well, they were pushed away in the
Israeli,
last few years.
but
But he's
not like
talking
this.
about it. You should
Not
go to
like
the
this.
reform and the conservative and strengthen their Jewish identity. They should feel completely
But
Jewish.
That's what I want. I think that Anu should create a big hug to the reform and the conservative in the United States and have conversations about it, just to know that somebody's listened to them. We do care for them. They are part of us. The fact that they're in the United States and they're not exactly going through the ways that the Orthodox community is going doesn't mean that they don't belong to our people. I think the bridges should be oiled in a sense that just to calm the atmosphere down. Because, you know, in the beginning, everything is shaking and everybody's jumping. We know it's politics. We know it's tough. We know we are only the beginning of this road. And there are many fronts to fight, But I'm talking about your position, our involvement, our relations with these communities, because I don't think they always got the fair
embrace.
Yes, because they were, you know, they had to confront many walls, and they're not really accepted here. But to cut the relations altogether, it's dangerous. So I think that this is our job to do with these communities in the United States.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. By the way, you know, I have like 50 students now. I don't know how many are Jewish, but it took 2.5 months for some of them to come and tell me, I'm Jewish. You know, I was like amazed. And by the way, my colleagues, the other professors, you know, it used to be that whenever there was something in Israel, they used to come in, oh, what's happening? What's going on? They don't anymore ask me anything anymore. So you're right. There is a big change, not only among the Jews, you know, who feel kind of not embraced, but of course, people who are non-Jewish, there's a big change.
You know, we live in times that there's so many communities that are not accepted. There's so many immigrants, so many people are pushed out or running away from place to place, and the whole world is shaking.
Right.
And people feel uncomfortable and they're not safe. And I think that there's so many fronts to handle, and it's so hard to feel good. Listen, America is not feeling good about many things. You know, they have enough headaches.
But I think she's right. You're right.
But whatever we can do in order to create a positive environment to our people, or in areas that we can do something about it, we should.
So Anu can reach reforms and conservatives in a gentle way to reach, and somehow, I don't know how, it's a big thing to...
I know exactly.
So they're represented, and since we do all sorts of events, right? It's not just a museum, it's public programming and events. We do all sorts of events for all different denominations, and also for secular Jews, right? You don't need to belong to a denomination. In fact, in Israel, a lot of people, there's less of a need to belong to a denomination, okay? So I think we're a natural home for everyone. I think what you're describing in academia is that in certain circles, it's become a liability to be Jewish. It's once again become a liability to be Jewish, not to mention a liability to be Zionist. It's a huge liability to be Zionist.
Yes.
Okay?
And I'm going around, you know, everything is out with me.
Yeah.
My loyalty to Israel, my patriotism to Israel, me being Jewish. You know, I'm all over with my students, with my colleagues. I know it. In my films.
In some circles, especially if you're in the beginning of your career, there is a temptation to hide the liability. That is, don't identify as Jewish or Zionist.
Right.
We thought we'd never have that day again, but we're there again. Okay, we were hoping that this would never rear its ugly head, but it has. And yes, we need to address these people, strengthen their sense of belonging, arm them with the answers to themselves and to others, right? Not be apologetic about who they are. You know, Jewish history is full of people who who are motivated to disown their identity, right? When Mahler wanted to be a big conductor, he converted to Christianity.
Yeah.
Okay, so our history is full of that stuff, right?
Yeah, but you know, I used to say Shana Tova, you know, to the faculty. I said, you know, Shana Tova to everybody. Happy New Year, Shana Tova. I even said they told me, some friends of mine, Jewish, told me to stop.
Why?
You know, that's not proper.
Well,
yeah,
now,
let's not
course
make
I'm
too
doing
much
it.
noise. Yeah, let's be sort of
so much politically correct and incorrect. You cannot say anything anymore. So
yeah,
but you know, don't get me started on that.
Yeah,
on PC. Yeah.
So I know that you're doing fantastic, and I know that I'm sure that deep down you are looking around, you know, what's happening now with the government, how much they will try to put their foot in interfering with programming, with whatever.
So listen, in the 10 years that I've been here, 8.5 of those years were Likud years, okay? And there's never been a single instance of, and although we're 38% government owned, okay? So the government has 38% of our shares, okay?
Yeah.
And about 20% of our budget comes from the government, okay? In spite of that, there's not been a single instance of an attempt to interfere with content. And I don't think there will be. And if there ever is, we will resist and reject any attempt, chas v'chalila, if ever there's an attempt to interfere with content. Hasn't happened yet. You know, there was one instance in which I got a letter from the chief rabbi who was unhappy with one of the objects that we were displaying. And I answered politely, but we didn't remove the object, okay? And that was the chief rabbi, that wasn't government.
Right.
Not everybody was happy when we opened on Shabbat. So this museum until 2016 was not open on Shabbat. The reason, quite frankly, was because people wouldn't come. There was nothing to show, okay? It was for financial reasons that we didn't open. When we opened phase 1 of our renewal in 2016, which was the smaller of the two wings, we started opening on Shabbat. Now, museums in Israel open on Shabbat. That's the status quo. All museums in Israel are open on Shabbat. I think Yad Vashem isn't. Well, that's their business, okay? Israel Museum, Tel Aviv Museum, all of these museums operate on Shabbat.
Well, they cannot single you out.
No. So we took it upon ourselves. So we started opening on Shabbat, although we don't use cash. Money doesn't exchange hands. The gift shop is not open. The cafeteria is not open. It's just a very skeletal staff. But we're up. And so when we opened on Shabbat, there was some I'd say pressure in the religious press. The Jewish Museum is open on Shabbat. Museums in Israel operate on Shabbat. What's the big deal? But other than that, there was never any government attempt to interfere with the content, and I don't think there will be. If chas v'chalila there is, we'll reject it completely and outright.
Well, you know, now in the beginning, they're threatening in so many things, but you know, they just spoke too fast, and it will take time. And I believe some things will settle down, but some things won't, and we'll have to wait and see and know what to fight.
But at least there are avenues or venues, regardless of the new government. Like, for example, what Tzili just pointed out about, at least in America, Jewry, a lot of them don't feel embraced or listened to. This is really something that it's really important what Tzili is saying to reach.
I couldn't agree more. A lot of times I think in the history of peoples and religions, where's that point when it's different streams within the same people, and then there's a split? Right. And sometimes it happens, okay?
Yeah.
Where's that tipping point where it's just too much, where the differences are too much? where the alienation is too much. And how far are we from that tipping point? I'm really concerned.
Sure, like in America in general, look at the Republican and Democrat. It's really became like unbelievable. They already almost reached the tipping point, and now we have to be careful with American Jewry and us.
But you know,
but no, even within the Jewish people, Tzili, you're familiar with the Samaritans, the Shomronim.
Sure.
Right? So the Shomronim used to be Jews. There was a certain point in history where there was such alienation between the groups that it split. Okay? Yeah. Where is that point, and how far are we from that point? That's that's my concern.
Right. Yeah. So do you have any tools to analyze and know when this tipping point will, you know?
And I think it also has, there's a lot of chance involved, okay? So the Shomronim became separate, but the Karaites, the Karaim, are recognized as a part of the Jewish people, okay? Jesus lived and died a Jew.
Right.
And his followers lived and died Jews.
Who knows it in Israel?
Only posthumously were they declared a separate religion, okay? So in history, there are examples. I don't think there's a pattern. There's a lot of chance involved where does that split get recognized as a full split, okay? When do Shiites and Sunnis start killing each other? When do Catholics and Protestants start killing each other? Okay?
Right.
Where's that point?
Can't we look at them? Can't we look at them and develop some, you know, research tools to look to those groups and maybe predict?
I understand what you're getting at, but I honestly don't think that there's any analytical tools, because there's too many parameters involved. It's timing and it's location, and there's so many ingredients that it's really hard. But what we do know is that, yes, it happened, okay? By the way, it happened to us.
It will take place, and it will take place. We just need to stay tuned and close to this so we can address it when it takes place, or just a little bit before. It's not that simple. It's so complicated. It's not an answer.
I feel we're in good hands, if I may flatter you, and the Anu thing. Museum. I mean,
we close it here, Danny. So,
I really feel that we're in good hands.
Let's stay with this.
We do what we can.
Sounds like he's the Messiah, you know.
Well, sure, I'm looking for Messiah, and you know, I'm looking at you too, Tzili. Come on, you know. I keep preaching her.
I have the donkey at home.
The Messiah. Yeah, right. So nice. Anyway, Dan, I don't know. You need a lot of strength, and
Dan, thank you. We'll stay positive. Go and visit the museum. It's wonderful. Put in all your family roots and history, so we'll have tons of archives of the Jewish people.
Right.
By the way, my personal family roots are about to expand. I'm about to be a granddad in May.
Oh, really? Oh, that's amazing. I can tell you it's amazing. It's really what we say, a tikkun for everything. It's unbelievable, the joy. So yeah,
and about the optimism, Tzili, from the first time that we met, it was obvious to us that that's one thing that we share, right? We're optimists. And that gives us energy to do things. Our actions are motivated by optimism. If we weren't optimists, we wouldn't.
Love.
The only way to handle everything is by keep doing. And you just focus on the good stuff and whatever you believe in, and you do.
Right, that's what he's doing. Dan, toda raba.
Thank you. Thank you,
everyone. I hope to see you soon. Thank you for hosting me. Toda raba.
It was awesome. It was beautiful.
Bye.